so then yeah, we got married last year. Like, she just came, like, I'd been saying this to her anyway, but she came in and sat down on the sofa one time, and she was just like, "Yeah, I think we should get married." And I was like, "Yeah, why not? Like, let's do it."
I
So
love it.
it was just, yeah, there was no proposal. It was more of just like a conversation, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, cool, why not? And like, to be honest, I never thought I'd get married. Like,
Yeah.
or it was never something that I actively thought, oh, yeah, one day I'm gonna get married. Like, but I think like we got married because it was, if it makes a difference to her, like if it matters to your partner, then why wouldn't I do that for you? Like, and that sounds kind of like weird, like in a way of like, what, you're marrying me just because I want to marry? Like, no, it's not about that.
No, it's
Like,
beautiful, actually.
I'm like, so now we all have the same like family name, and that was a big deal. So if it's a
Mm-hmm.
big deal for you, then cool, I'm on board. Um, and yeah, it's going pretty good.
Man, I think if people would have a little more of that attitude, about relationships, I bet that not only would relationships last longer, I think that, people just being better in general, because it's really, if we can think from the perspective of the other person, especially like if they're a significant other or spouse, or, like, if it matters to you, then it matters to me. I love that. That's right on,
Yeah,
man. We need more of
yeah,
that. We need more of that in the world.
yeah. I kind of like, so like the other thing that like I said to Becky from like really early on is that like I really dislike, and I'm so anti the notion that you, like, when people say about falling in love, I'm like, that makes it sound so accidental. Like, if like
Mm,
I've fallen off the curb before, like fallen off the sidewalk, and so like if I can fall off something by accident, then I can fall out of love. Like, and so I said to her like early on that like I choose to love you. It's an active like
mm,
thing that I'm doing. So then like when things come up that make me like, because you're pissing me off or whatever,
right.
then like I remind myself that, well, I've chosen to love you because of this, and this. And so despite like, yeah, I'm irritated, like it was an active decision to like, I don't know, maybe that just works in my mind, but yeah, I think love's not an accidental thing. I think it should be more intentional, because it goes against this throwaway culture then, where it's like, yeah, I'm committed because I chose to commit.
Do
Dude.
you feel like that a lot of your friends kind of share that value, or do you think that that kind of came from your, I guess, your roots and like the way that you were raised?
Yeah, I don't think my friends particularly share um, that sort of like attitude or like mindset. Like it came from like, so I had a conversation with somebody who yeah, like, but it was like somebody who I respected loads back in the church that my parents go to, and yeah, and like he kind of set my mind thinking like that, and I thought, that's it. It made a lot of sense to me, that like it's an intent, like, and yeah, so I think it does come from those sort of roots, and particularly from that interaction of talking to that person who I respected.
Mm.
um yeah.
That's so good. I've never thought of it like in the, I mean, you kind of hear similar things, growing up the way we did, but man, that whole idea of like what you were saying at first, the falling in love part, like,
Hmm.
yeah, I could fall off the curb, or, yeah, about it not, not wanting it to be like this accident, but to be a choice. That's good
Yeah.
and true, really.
Yeah.
That's why I think so many older people make it longer in marriages, because they choose daily. My parents have been married. I think this is going to be 38 years, almost 40 years. That's a long
Yeah.
time, and they've had their share of arguments and fights and all that, but they're making the choice, to go
Yeah,
it through thick and thin,
yeah,
So
that's it.
for
Yeah,
sure.
I think it's like, especially into like with a lot of the things nowadays, like you got apps for, well, you got more apps than your phone can hold for
Yeah.
like meeting someone
Yeah.
else. I think it goes into this throwaway culture of like, oh well, yeah, like you're saying something that I don't like, so I'll just find somebody who doesn't say what you're saying,
That's
and like it's feeling like you can find someone else, whereas like, yeah, it's like choosing to love that person despite what they're saying. Obviously, I mean, there's limits to like
of
to
course.
this stuff.
Of course.
Um, but yeah, definitely from my experience, um, I think that's the way I operate anyway, and the way I'm kind of in on this thing.
Yeah. That's
It's
good.
awesome, man.
Yeah, it's so great. Well,
What else do we want to talk about?
as a parent, I guess I think a good, and I don't know what other questions you have, but I think a closing question could be, now that you're a parent, what do you think like your advice to your kids would be when they get to that place in their life where maybe they're facing things, whether it's at home or school, work, whatever it is, that seem overwhelming, that they're going to look and, go search for, like, I don't know, whatever, supposed unhealthy coping mechanisms or whatever. I mean, what would your, yeah, I guess advice be to the, future kids facing that kind of, I mean, it's overbearing sometimes, especially I can't
Yeah.
imagine being a youth in today's culture
Oh
with
God.
all the social media and everything.
Yeah. Like,
Like if
I
somebody
don't.
could have told you when you were that age, like given you some kind of advice, what do you think would have actually helped? I'm not saying would have kept you from we've all partied at different times and done our stuff. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about mental health and dealing with negative in life.
I think like I think like knowing that like if you're experiencing something, then uh so whatever it is that you're experiencing, somebody else has experienced it too. You're not alone. Like you're, but without making people feel like, oh, like I'm not special, because everybody's special and everybody's awesome. But like your your story is nothing special. Like
Mm.
people have definitely experienced something before, like similar or
Yeah.
identical. And so like whatever you're feeling is like, yeah, just know that like your story is not the only one like it. And like I think like an important thing is just to like have people who like people from all sort of like walks of life, because like if you surround yourself with people who do as you do, then
Right.
all you're ever going to know is like, I don't know, the same thing, because nobody sees anything wrong with what you're doing, because
Right.
and so like
That's so good.
keeping like yeah, I don't know, just maintaining relationships and like touch with all sorts of people, um not just the people at the end of the night at the house party, like, yeah, what kind of advice are they giving you? But
Something.
yeah,
That's
I
good.
to be honest, I don't know what I would tell my kids. Like I think I'm just making it all up as I'm going with this whole parenting thing,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I'm okay with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you feel like your kind of personal guiding light in life is these days?
Well, the thing guiding me.
Like, what do you think? Um, what I guess kind of like how would I phrase this? Value structure um, that you have kind of helps you decide how to live your life because you were raised in Christianity, and it sounds
Oh
like you're
yeah.
not really there, but like what are the kind of
What
places
determines
that yeah, what are the places that you go to find wisdom and all
enlightenment?
that?
I don't know. Like so, like I've kind of for a while I've kind of lived by like a couple of sort of things of like I've always said to myself, right, like love everyone until they give you a reason not to, and then like don't infringe on anybody else's freedom because I wouldn't want them to do that to me, and just sort of I don't I don't know where I get my and get any yeah like I suppose I like I'm just quite honest with people, and I just think actually like fuck any awkwardness. Like I'd rather like spark up a conversation, like whether
Yes.
it's with my mum, and I'm like,
Yeah.
why do you? Whether it's like, oh, I don't know, why do you think that we have to go to heaven? Why can't we all just like die and dissipate? Like I don't know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like it might be an awkward conversation that you've just started, but actually, I think like if you're I'm really comfortable. I've taught myself to be really comfortable with sitting through conversations with people when they're um when they're sort of like arguing against you or whatever, because I think actually I'm comfortable with my beliefs
Where
and
you're
my
at.
where I'm at. So I don't mind letting you talk. If you change my mind on something, well, that's cool because it means it makes sense to me and you've educated me. So I'm just like I'm happy to listen to people if they're like if I feel like actually you're just wasting breath, then I mean it's your breath, not mine. So like I'm okay with that. But yeah, so as far as like guidance and stuff, I just talk and talk and talk.
Mhm.
But
Basically from other people. Or
yeah,
listen to what they have to say. And
yeah, that's it. I don't mean I just talk. I mean like I talk to people and
Right.
listen. Yeah.
I think we should
To
have more
to
of those conversations these days, like you said, like where you're not so worried about the awkwardness of it. And actually, I think that would help a lot of the strife happening in our world right now.
yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that kind of recently too. Of um, I really think that if nothing else, at the end of the day, like the most kind of the most valuable thing, one of the most valuable things that we have in life, and if we have everything else and we don't have this, and it's just kind of shit. But like I've kind of gone through different phases of life where I was just like really trying to hustle and work and get my career further down the road. And I think some of my like saddest times were when I was focusing on that too much and I wasn't like opening up myself to people more. And I kind of found that the more I just open myself up to people and conversations and like finding out what people have gone through, and that just kind of like connection on any level with another human being, like I come to find more and more that there's nothing that can replace that, like there's no amount of wealth, there's no amount of really anything that can replace having a conversation with your mom
Mm.
or
Yeah.
having a conversation with your friends or having a disagreement with someone. Even if you're disagreeing with them, you're still like communicating with another human.
Mm.
And I don't know, I just have these kind of flashes here and there of like what would life be like if you don't have those people. Like sometimes you kind of take those things for granted, and if everything was taken away from you, and you still had your friendships and your relationships, like you would still have a lot, and
Yeah.
hopefully some of those people are um, really kind and loving and wise people. But that's something that I've really come started to think about a lot more, is like anyone that's been in my life is like I'm really just super thankful for them, whatever role they've played, because that's just not I don't know. You can't buy it. You know,
Mm-mm.
you
No,
can't
you
like
can't.
fabricate that,
Mm-mm.
which is
Yeah.
why we love doing this because
Yeah.
it's